Hey everyone, Sayre at Nova again. And this time around, we're going to talk through an old British single cylinder bottom end rebuild. Just some concepts on it. Not going to be a super deep dive, but just a general thing of what we're looking at. What this is a 1951 Matchless G80, 500cc, single cylinder, push rod motor, air cooled. It came in because the customer knew he had a bad big end and said, hey, while you're at it, why don't I'm going to rebuild your crank, and while you're at it, why don't you go set up the crank cases as well, and I'll talk about what that means. So first things first, the big end on these it's a roller bearing. So here's your your conrod, which connects to the crankshaft. This is the old one. This is a better condition spare that we put in. The big end is this end down here, and the big end bearing is what goes. And this is the old one that's in pieces here. But these rollers are trapped in this cage here, a row of three going around multiple times, and they sit on the crank pin, and then the outer race of the bearing goes over that, and this outer race is pressed into this before you do all of that. So what I did is I took it all apart. I took these old bearings out. I took the pieces I had, and I looked at the better conrod, and I put it all together. So you can sort of look at this and see some of the failure of it. Now this had there's some grooving in here. There's it's not great, but there's some skidding happening. But the real symptom we had first, so you can see how there's an unsmooth area there where it's smooth there. That's a sign of, and this is also when I rub it. This is catching my thumb here. This is a sign of a worn pin. The symptom was you could grab the end of the conrod here, and moving it up and down, it would move quite a bit, and that's no good. And as the bike was running, the owner could hear it going, knocking basically. Said he could hear that, pretty much knew what it was, tore it down the top end, felt that, and said, okay, who can do this for me? And so I said, I can. So that was the start. What started off as a crank rebuild. That's what that stuff is. What you have to do is press apart the crank with a hydraulic press the pins out. And then what's critical about this is actually you have to size you have to make sure the clearance between the outer race, the pin, and the bearing is all correct. It's basically 0 to about half a thou is what you want, which is very much not much. But if you just go and press this in willy-nilly, you may or may not have the right size. So the bearing race will crush down and actually constrict. So basically, you have to measure everything beforehand, do a bit of math, try to figure it out, and hope for the best. If you have very sophisticated grinding, I'm getting that stuck in there. If you have very sophisticated grinding and surface finishing stuff, you can actually press this race into the conrod and then remove material and polish that surface and size it that way. What I tend to do is take this out and I actually remove material from the conrod itself, which can be a little bit of a rougher surface when you're done, rougher finish when you're done, because it's not going to be rolling anything, and then press this back in and make your size there. Now, you do have to make sure you don't get too big, so this will slip. This still has to be an interference fit, which means the race will always be slightly bigger than the conrod, and it will always crush a little bit as it goes in there. So once you get that right, that's actually the hard part. Seemingly, and then you start to press it all back together. This one I've replaced this side. They call this the drive axle, the main shaft here. This one is where the oil pump is driven on this bike, and also is critical to the oiling system. We'll get to that in a little bit. But this one is actually, so this crank isn't done yet. I started to press it together, and then I started to true it a little bit, and then I will final press it together. So you see this has threads here coming out. This will take a nut on the end that gets torqued up to hold it all in place. This side, not quite there yet because I haven't finished pressing it together. I started it, got it, and I got it square, and then I made sure that these two are relatively true. I still have a little bit more to go to do that, and then I'll final press it together, and then I'll put it on a truing stand, which looks like this. And I'll adjust these, and the crank shafts, the crank axle, excuse me, go between here, and I rotate it, and then you by truing it, you actually have to knock it around with a soft face hammer to get these wheels in alignment with each other. You use a dial indicator on here, and you want to get it to, and the manual spec is about a thou or so of out of round, out of true. It's nice to get it to be perfect if you can. So I knock it around till it's darn near perfect, and then it goes back into the crankcase. So the other part, so that's a crank rebuild, excuse me. That'll be a done crank rebuild. The other part of it involves the rest of it. So this has the crankcases. This has two different styles of bearings on either side of the crankcases. The drive side is what comes out of the engine, goes to the primary drive that'll connect to your clutch into your transmission. This gets a lot more wear on it because all the force is getting, the primary chain is pulling on it. So this has two ball bearings here that take up the weight, do the lifting and rolling on that side. The other side is called the timing side. That's where the cams are. That timing. That has much less force on it. It's just driving the cams over here. So it's just a small bronze bushing. And you have to basically press the old one out. This is what it looks like. This is the old one. And press a new one in. But it being a Brit bike, when this is pressed in, this new shaft won't fit in there. It's too small. So you have to size it. And not only do you have to size it, you have to size it to be in line with this. So you have to do what's called a line bore or a line ream. And so you put the cases together, make sure they're exactly the position they will be in when they run. You bolt it all tight, and then you take special reamers that come through and align with this bearing over here and gently cut this hole bigger and bigger and bigger. You're looking for, I think the book is about a little over 1 thou to 1.5 thou clearance on this shaft. And I've gotten almost there, and what I'm going to do is actually just hone it the rest of the way with a soft hone now that I have the line lined up. To give it a good surface for the oil to be retained. If you've seen our other videos, we've talked about the BSA oiling system. This is similar in that this bushing is critical to the oiling of the big end here. The oil pump comes up through the hole. The oil pump, is driven through the hole in the bushing, right there. And then the oiling system, it pumps oil through there into these holes on the drive axle, and then from there up through the crank to the crank pin. So if this is too big and worn out, just like the BSA, you will lose your oil pressure and you'll have big end oiling problems. So that's one of the reasons why the owner wanted to do a new drive axle here and a new bushing, just to be sure. Doesn't want to have to go in here again. So we've done that. I have to do a final finish on that. These are brand new. This has to be finished, and then it'll bolt together. The last thing we did is we changed the small end pin for where the piston goes. That one is far more simple, although there is an oil hole at the top you have to align correctly. That can be a little bit annoying if you don't take the time to look at it from the start. But pretty straightforward. So yeah, this is typical British motorcycle stuff. It's deceptively simple, frustratingly simple, meaning you think if you go in thinking it's easy, it's not. There's very few parts, but each one has to be set up just right. So learning how to do what's what and investing in the tools to be able to do it right, rather than thinking you can do it with whatever you have in your toolbox. Those are the things that can really up your game if you're trying to get into this stuff.
No sledge strap?
No sledge strap on this one. Yeah, the other Brit bikes, the twins where most people are used to, BSA, Triumph, Norton, they all have a sledge strap that has to be cleaned. This one does not, so that's a plus. I don't think it has any oil filtering system whatsoever, so that's a negative. But that's how it was. So yeah, if you have any experience building these things, chime in. If I'm doing it wrong, hey, let me know. And if you're just curious and you always wanted to know, this is a good way to just kind of see what's in here, what we're up to when we're doing this stuff. So yeah, chime in the comments. We love to hear it, and thanks for watching.